You have a fear you cannot explain. Something that lives specifically in the dark. Between 2 and 4 in the morning. Psychologists call it irrational. But archaeologists found the answer buried inside the skulls of your ancestors, 2 perfectly spaced puncture marks, pressed deep into ancient bone. Something had been selecting early humans. At night. For thousands of generations. Not randomly. Deliberately. And it was patient enough to simply sit at the edge of your firelight, and wait for the flames to die. This is what it was. For most of human history, darkness was not an inconvenience. It was a sentence. Modern humans have completely lost the ability to understand what night truly meant to our ancestors. You turn off the light and reach for your phone. They turned away from the fire and entered a world of absolute, suffocating blackness, where something else had already spent millions of years perfecting its advantage. Early humans, the ones we now call Homo sapiens and their predecessors, were physiologically unimpressive by the standards of the ancient world. No claws. No exceptional speed. Poor night vision compared to almost every major predator sharing the landscape. Their hearing, dulled by the constant noise of group living. Their bodies, exposed, fragile, and warm, a very specific kind of warm that certain hunters could detect from extraordinary distances. And yet they survived. But understanding how they survived forces us to first understand what they were surviving against. Researchers studying ancient campsites across sub-Saharan Africa, the Levant, and southern Europe have found something deeply unsettling embedded in the archaeological record. The pattern of puncture marks on early human remains, the placement of fossil evidence, tells a story that no textbook has ever fully articulated with the psychological weight it deserves. Early humans were not simply living in a dangerous world. They were being specifically selected by a particular type of predator. One that specialized in them. One that had learned their rhythms, their habits, and their one catastrophic vulnerability. Their need to sleep. The predator in question was not the largest. That distinction belonged to the short-faced bear or the cave lion, both formidable and documented in the fossil record with awe-inspiring regularity. The predator that haunted early human psychology most deeply, the one that shaped our neurology, our social structures, and even our modern anxiety responses, was the leopard. Paleontologist Bob Brain's decades of excavation work at the Swartkrans cave system in South Africa produced one of the most quietly devastating discoveries in the entire history of human origins. Embedded within the fossilized remains of early hominins, specifically Paranthropus robustus and early Homo specimens dating back nearly 2 million years, were puncture marks. Paired, precise, perfectly spaced puncture marks. Matching, with extraordinary accuracy, the canine spacing of the ancient leopard jaw. These were not scavenged remains. The positioning of the wounds, the dragging patterns of associated bones, and the vertical transport of remains into elevated positions all point to one conclusion. These early humans were actively pursued, caught, and carried, often into trees, in the same way modern leopards cache their prey today to keep it away from competing scavengers. But here is where the story accelerates beyond simple predation ecology. Researchers studying modern leopard behavior noticed something that recontextualized the fossil evidence entirely. Leopards, unlike lions or hyenas, do not rely on explosive group pursuit. They are ambush architects. They observe. They wait. And critically, they display a documented behavioral pattern of repeatedly targeting the same prey species, and even the same individual prey, across multiple nights. They learn schedules. And when anthropologists mapped this behavioral data against the archaeological evidence of early human fire usage, the correlation was striking. The vast majority of ancient fire sites discovered across African and Eurasian early human occupation zones were not positioned for warmth as the primary function. The positioning, elevated, perimeter-facing, and maintained in multiple simultaneous clusters, was defensive. Specifically designed to maximize light coverage along the exact approaches a stalking ambush predator would use. The fire was not a comfort. It was a warning system. Ancient humans also began developing what researchers now identify as the earliest evidence of coordinated night watch behavior, a practice documented through sleeping pattern studies of modern hunter-gatherer groups, in which members of a group maintained staggered, overlapping periods of light sleep, ensuring that at no point during the night was every member of a group in deep sleep simultaneously. They invented the night watch. Not for war. For it. Here is the part that most documentaries leave out, because it is deeply uncomfortable. The leopard did not simply pressure early humans into building better fires. The sustained, multi-generational predation pressure of nocturnal ambush hunters fundamentally rewired the human brain. Modern neuroscience has identified a cluster of anxiety responses in Homo sapiens that have no clear survival utility in contemporary life: an irrational dread of darkness, hypervigilance in enclosed spaces, a documented spike in cortisol levels during the specific hours between 2 and 4 in the morning, the precise window ancient predators preferred. These are not modern anxieties born of stress or social media. These are ancient alarms. Inherited. Encoded. Running on ancient hardware inside a modern skull. The reason millions of people worldwide wake at 3 in the morning with a sudden, sourceless sense of dread? Researchers increasingly suggest that response has a name. A very old name. Carved into our neurology by something that watched from beyond the firelight for thousands of generations. You did not inherit that fear randomly. You inherited it because the ones who didn't feel it, didn't make it to morning. So the next time the darkness feels heavier than it should, the next time you wake at 3 in the morning and cannot explain the unease settling into your chest, consider the possibility that you are not imagining something. You are remembering something. Something your ancestors never forgot. Because forgetting it cost them everything. If that thought stays with you, if you want to keep pulling at the threads of what we truly are and where we actually came from, then you are in exactly the right place. Subscribe to Stick Sapiens. The next story is already waiting in the dark.